Sorry, you guys. I'm a little late getting here, but I will do my best to fill you in on where I'm at. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a drawing that is a cover for a paperback book for an author. And so what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to I've started with this blue concept, and this is the background for the actual book, and then there'll be other characters that'll be put in front. And so I'm trying to see what I can do as far as making that happen, and hopefully we'll make it a little bit interesting as I talk my way through the drawing. And so if you come on and you're logged on, don't be afraid to say hello and let me know. Let me know if you have any comments or things that you would like to talk about. And so this is the program that I'm using. I'm using a program called Sketchbook Pro, made by Autodesk, and the thing that I'm drawing on is my iPad. This one originally was drawn on my computer. So last week I showed you how I drew it on the computer, and then I've done a few enhancements just using my Apple Pencil. And now I'm just going to start working on the foreground. So you see all these two islands in the foreground here that are very rough looking. I'm going to go in there and enhance those and spend a couple of hours here trying to just finish this drawing up so that I can then start working on the other aspects of it. So I hope you enjoy this process, and we'll see how it goes. Feel free to send in any comments. So if you have a comment about what I'm doing, or you have a question, don't make sure you ask, because I am now working in front of my computer, so I can see what it is and what's going on. And so I'm hoping that my my audio is working, so you can hear me. If it is, then please tell me and let me know. Is my audio working? This is a new setup, so I'm going to ask people the question, and they can let me know when we get to there. So now let's get down to the drawing. So I'm using an Apple Pencil, and I'm using um, my iPad Pro, which is the big iPad. It's 12 inches across, which helps a lot because of my eyesight and because I'm not blind, but it just helps. I wear my glasses, and the big screen allows me just to be a little bit more effective when it comes to the drawing. So um, the things that we're working on, just so you know, I'll come in here and I'll just draw a couple big circles here so you know what I'm talking about. The areas that I want to work on, um, let's just take that off. And I'm just going to draw these huge circles, huge lines across here. So I'm just taking the thing up here, and you can see this island and this island are the two areas that need to be worked on, and this part here. So the last time what I did, and I didn't do this online, so you didn't see me. I worked on the mountains in the background a little bit and tried to make the light reflecting off of those. Well, now I have to spend a little bit of time creating this actual forest that we have in front. And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time to make the details a little bit more exact and a little bit more um, interesting to look at. And so that's the goal for this session. So I'll just take off those little lines I have drawn on there, and I'll hopefully be able to zoom in and let you see what I'm working on. So I'm going to start on this right island here, and you can see I have a lot of the information that I need on there to create, but I'm just going to create a little bit more definition in the trees and stuff like that. So the Apple Pencil, these are the settings. So within this app that I'm using, you can see that it has I have the ability to go in here and actually build these trees. And so I'm using a black, and I don't think I will. I think I'll take that back off again. It's not a black, it's more of a blue, and I'm going to try and work a little bit more with this blue, and so it's not so dark. And then from there, I'm just going to start to put a little bit more details into some of these trees. Now, one of the things that I always tell any of the artists that I'm working with is that you guys should go in to art, and when you do, you'll start looking at the whole world differently. And so you'll get in there, and then you'll notice that, oh, look at that. This is the way a tree grows, or this is the way you should draw an evergreen tree. And so you will start to look at things a lot more carefully. So the one day I was telling people, the one day I was drawing a tiger, and I wanted to draw some grass in front of him. And so the the sick thing, and this makes you look like you're totally insane, is I laid down in the grass and sat there and looked at the way the grass was growing, which is not normal behavior for most people, but it is what I was doing just to get a little bit better of an understanding of how you would draw grass and what grass actually looks like when you get in close enough. And so this tiger that I was drawing, I wanted him to be sitting in this long grass, and I was working on it. I can't remember. I think I was in one of the Caribbean islands, so I was looking at the grass that they have, that big, thick grass that they plant one strand at a time, and then it grows all over the place and stretches out underground, and it all has a single root, and it's all connected together. And so I was looking at that grass and thinking, this grass would probably work better than what I had in mind, and use that thicker stuff that tigers aren't found in Mexico, as far as I know, and I think that's where I was laying down on the grass just to try and see it. So I did spend some time in Africa and had a chance to lay down in the grass there on a golf course, because a golf course was the only spot that had a good internet connection. And so I was sitting in a lawn chair in the middle of the golf course, um, trying to connect. At that time, I was working online, which isn't as strange for people nowadays, but back then it was a little strange. And that's where I worked, from the middle of this golf course. But the strange part was all the bloody monkeys running around. And so the monkeys kept coming closer and closer to me, and I wasn't too sure whether all monkeys bit or not. So then I panicked a little bit, but they left me alone and let me finish my drawing. But they told us that, like, in the place that we were staying at, which had a thatched roof on it, it was beautiful inside, but it had the grass hut type look to it. And they told us to make sure you don't leave your door open, because the monkeys will come in and steal things from you. So they're, I guess they were a little bit calm around humans. So the idea behind the details that I'm putting in this area, and you can see how a lot of my strokes, as I zoomed in, you can see how they got really rough, and it's not really clear. And I'm not unhappy with that. I just want to make the top of it a little bit more detailed so that you can see that they are actual trees. And so that's what I'm working on. And I still don't know if anybody can hear me. So if my audio is working, somebody tell me whether or not it works or not. So my iPad, what I'm doing is I'm mirroring my iPad to my PC, and then I'm using my PC to stream this to Facebook Live. And so that's where this is all working out. But I don't know how I can tell if there's anybody on with Facebook Live, or whether or not it's. So I got a title there, I got a comment, writing a comment. I have no idea if anybody's on watching, but if somebody's on watching, I know it's beautiful outside here. So if people are watching out there, let me know. And at the moment it says I have no viewers, so nobody's watching. But the idea behind this always drawing online and streaming it is that I can then post it onto my Facebook account, and then people can follow along and can reproduce or attempt to reproduce the drawing that I've done here. And so the goal is not to keep things a secret. The goal is to assist people in getting better at drawing digitally. And I'm all self-taught, so some of the techniques that I use would not be the method that a traditional artist might use, but I find a lot of them work for me, and so I'm just sharing that. And so as this island start to come to shape, what this reminds me of is an island in northern Ontario. So let's say it's an island in the Muskokas area. So I'm thinking about the islands there, and the way the trees and stuff is grows there, and the rocks show through, and so some of this green area that you see just shining through, I'll use that color. And so to steal a color from something, you just use that little, and I'll do this again just so you can see. So you can see it's now the green color. I'll do it again. So there's this little at the top. There's a little eyedropper. So you take the eyedropper and you take that down and you put it over there over top the green, and then that's your new color that you'll be drawing with. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to use that color to help create some green trees in the background here. And again, they a lot of this stuff won't be really evident, but it's like I did with a lot of the other things. It's just you build up layers, and so that's what I'm doing is I'm just building up layers as I draw on this. And so I'm just going to keep drawing, and I'll keep trying to produce what I've got and see how it's coming along. I see that the time is continuing to drop, and you don't really have to hear me. So if the microphone's not working, that's fine too. But if it is, and I keep looking at, like, I'm using my son's headset, so I'm not too sure if I've got it on the right settings or what. But and it's not that really that important that you hear me or not. But you'll hopefully be able to comment. And so continuing to draw and continuing to bring all of this stuff in. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a few of some gray brown rocks. So in around this color right here in the foreground, I'm just going to lay this down in here. And then I'll darken up some of the edges of it, and it's the Canadian Shield type rocks that you'll find in the foreground or in the front. I'm going to open up another version of Facebook here and see if it's actually working, and then I'll see whether or not something comes on or not, and whether or not I can hear it or not. So let's go into this one, Darren. It is Easter after all, so I'll do that. Get out of there. I don't want to do a story. I just want to go into my account. So I'm just looking at, like, on my computer here, I have a chance to look at a couple different ones. So I have one comment and I can see it on here, and it is working the way I want it to work. So let me just turn this on and see if I can hear myself talking. Yeah. So I think I can, I don't know if it's coming from, which microphone I'm coming from. Testing, 1, 2, 3. I don't know. I'll have both of them on, and then one of them must be picking it up because I can hear myself talking. So, all right. So my audio is working. My Apple Pencil is I love the way this has a little bit of a delay on it. So all right, so my audio is working. Worst thing to do is hear yourself talk. You always sound like it. I don't sound like that, but I guess I do. So again, you can see some of the details coming up in this. It's not a complete, like, you shouldn't be able to see every single little detail. And the sad thing is that this is a standalone picture as well, but it could be once I get to the point where I put in the characters for the book over top of this landscape, that a whole section of this you may not even be able to see it. And so as you're working on this, for me, it's just an exercise. and the picture by itself will stand alone. And because the pictures will stand alone, that will allow me to use it for some other paintings as well. Depending on how much I like it, it could just be a standalone painting with some interesting details on it. And I like the blue. I think it's very calming, and it's kind of cold looking, but it's kind of cool the way it's, this is the world as we know it, and I feel fine. So you can see why I draw and not sing, because I'm not very good at singing. And I'm still a work in progress when it comes to the drawing end of things. So again, as I was saying earlier, that when I draw for a couple of reasons, but the best one is the fact that it really calms me down. And it gives me a chance to spend some time with my brain not that active and just drawing as you move along and creating an interesting landscape like I am here. This is a fantasy landscape that will, it's not in any location in general, it's just a landscape which will be the background for the fantasy novel, hopefully, and if it's not, then it's just a standalone painting. The exercise of drawing a cover for someone's book is that as an author is writing her book, she has in her mind an image of what the area which this is happening at. Oh, sorry. Let me just back up and I'll come back to that point in a minute. What I've done now is I've gone to my favorite tool, which is the smudge around bristle brush, and I'm using that to create the to pull colors together and to create the rocks in the foreground, and I'll smudge out some of the other things now. It's set really high at the moment, and it's fairly big, and so what I'm doing with that is I'm just creating the rock front or the beach front with in the Canadian Shield with the rocks, and so they're two different colors of grays. I'm just smudging them together just to give it a little bit, well, not give it a little bit, I'm creating a shoreline. And then what I'll do is like this white that I see through here that I have drawn through there, I'll actually do that correctly along the edge of the shoreline. And so I'll just smudge it out at the moment. And the same thing with some of these trees I'm doing. I'll just smudge them in a little bit more so they're less distinct, and they sort of fade away into the bottom part of the tree and the other trees in front of it. And so it's just the top area that is what you'll catch on the top of the island, and the rest is just like a whole pile of different colors all blended together. No right or wrong way to draw trees. And at the moment, these are the evergreens. That's the Christmas tree type. Coniferous trees, deciduous trees are the ones that lose their leaves. This is not that type. This is a evergreen trees, and you can see some of these white little ones or light blue ones in there. Those are the ones that lose their branches, and so I'll be coming back to work on those as well. And so until then, I'm just going to continue to put tops on a lot of these trees. So you have a foreground and a background, and these trees overlapping each other. And so it looks so much better even with the little bit of work that I've done here. And now I'm going to also put some of this darker colors in here into some of these rocks. Again, this is just the layers building up. And then I'm also going to take this tool that I'm using here so you can see it. This is the Flow airbrush. And what I do with this is I'm going to bring it up a fairly large and pull the opacity down. Opacity is how dark it's going to be. And then I'm going to pull in a little bit more of the green in the background, just because I think it adds a real interesting look and the different colors of green. So I want to go into the green areas, and I want to have all the different types of green. So this is the one that I have a lot of in around this range. And so I'm going to pull it down here, and then I'm going to put a little bit more of that just on top. And so you can see how it sort of fills in some of the areas. And this might be the moss that you have on top of the rocks. And so some of that might be right there, and you'll see them on the top. And then I'll smudge that around and help it out. Smudge that around and smudge the rocks a little bit more still. Kind of like how it's almost got a little bit of a rainbow color in there, so that's very cool. Okay, and then now we're going to add in some of the trees that lose their leaves in the winter. So you can see how they're in white here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw in some of the brownness that can be the same type of trees, but just ones that you may find fighting for the sunlight. And then to make this look correct, what you have to do is you have to make sure that you put your light down on one side where the light is coming from, shining onto the trees. And so you have to sort of make that work. And there'll be a few, like just maybe one or two of these that come out from the background in there. And I'll find out whether or not I like that. If I don't, I can always smudge it out later on. And then let's go in here and get a little bit more of the lighter stuff. So you can see how the light's now getting picked up on this. And I'll use this light in a few different locations. I'll also do it on the evergreen trees. It's a little bit thick for the evergreen trees, but you get the idea. And just having some white trees is not such a bad idea either. And then let's put this down to about as small as I can get. So the 3, and then let's put some light that colors down on these trees. So the light shining down and being just caught on the edge of the trees, just to give it a little bit, looking like the light which is shining through is just being picked up by these tree branches. And then I'll come in there and I'll put some green into the trees as well, so they're not just blue. Because as you get, like, the farther away you get, you can leave it just as blue and grays because it's not closer. But the closer you get, the more colors that should appear in your trees and and more definition and more details. And so it's easier to look at it and say, oh, look, that's a tree, obviously, because it's in the foreground. But farther back, like across the water here, I don't have to spend as much time on those trees because it's in the distance, and in the distance they become less distinct. And so we're going to go just even a little bit more closer to the white, because right along here where the water's breaking on the shore, I'm just going to highlight it. And this is just the way the water ripples are touching the edge of it. And so I've turned it on its side, so it might have just rotated on you, but you'll get the idea. I'll put it back here in a second, right after I put down some of these edges. Okay, so there's not this trees are starting to come along now. Let's go back into the greens maybe, and let's get a nice little green color there to put on the back of some of these trees. And again, all it is layers, and I'm just building it up more and more each time by and adding in the branches and the trees and the different locations. So it's not exactly Bob Ross, but it will be a half decent painting when I'm finished. I have faith it'll start to come alive. Okay, I'm just going to zoom out for a second because that island is getting close to being enough details, but you can see the difference between the two. So you have that one island on the one side, and then you have the other island, and on the other island it looks like the trees are like this one did when it originally started. So now I'm going to go back over to that other island and try to start working on that and see if I can bring up some interesting details on it. So here we go into here now. This is island on the other side, and we're doing the same thing. So I'm going to actually start using the green here. So and I think that one is a little bit bold, so then I'm going to try to bring in the blue again and then work it with the blue to begin with. So I went silent on you there simply because I'm just concentrating on drawing some of these trees. And again, I'm just using the pencil. Nothing fancy or anything like that. I'm just using the pencil in the app and putting on some details on the tree so it has a little bit more interesting of a look, because at the moment they look like there's been a forest fire that ran through there and burnt everything to the ground, and I don't want that. Although once I read the person's book, blue may not even be this blue landscape may not be something that we like in the end, but we'll see. Okay, let's go and see if we can get the darker gray area. Let's go with that one right there. Yeah, let's go with this darker gray here. And again, it's just time consuming. No special way to draw them, but you can see how it starts with just a straight line, and then the branches sort of stick out to the side, and then you have your Christmas tree. And being able to make ones with lots of branches on them and then ones with hardly any branches on them is what makes the forest interesting, right? Or interesting to look at anyways. I wouldn't want to try and walk through this forest because it's pretty dense forest. And what it does is it looks like we're looking down on it. So the person that, like, I'll draw a character, one of the characters from the book, to be in the foreground, and they'll be up on a hillside looking down into this. So if you go all the way back, and so let's pull this back and take a look at it. If you pull this all the way back, you can see how it is. It looks like you're up high looking down, so you're up on a hillside looking down into the landscape. And so that's what we're doing here. So once I finish this island, and this island I'm not going to put as many trees on because I just don't feel like it at the moment. So I'm going to finish this one up fairly quickly with a little bit of the blue. I'll put a little bit of the white trees and a little bit of the brown trees and the white trees in there, and then I'll let it stand on its own. It doesn't have to be as populated as the other island. Maybe the other island, or maybe this island was hit by a forest fire or something like that. So there's nothing wrong with having one island really well populated with trees, and this one here is kind of burnt and less trees. But we're going to put on that brownie color, this one here on the rocks, like we did on the other side, just to create the shoreline. Start with the lighter color and then go into the darker color. And this one, what I'm going to do is in here is I'm going to put a lot of the rocks up So it looks like there's just the rocks have gone up, and there's a lot more rocks showing, and this is more of a rock cliff kind of shape. And so that's the way I see it in my eye. That doesn't mean that my drawing when I'm finished is going to look like that, but a lot of times it just seems to work that way, where it looks like, oh, this could be a cliff. And because of the shadows that were in there before and less trees, that can be a real cliffy area. Sorry to all the guys out there named Cliff. A cliffy area. And so again, switching back and forth between the airbrush and the pencil. The pencil goes on a little bit bolder and gives you a little bit more detail. So where the rocks are and where the surface of the rocks are. And then you go in with the smudge tool, and I smudge these colors together in order to create this look that this is a rocky surface. And so that is what we're working at. Now I'm going to go in there with a little bit of light white. You know what I did the last time with it, where I have a little line of white. And again, that's the way the waves are crashing on the shoreline. Separate the water from the and then I'm just going to try and work on some of these trees that were put in here that look like they were done by a drunken sailor. And so there we go. So that's the other island pretty well done. And so I'm just going to take a bite of my sandwich here, you guys. So pay attention and wait a second. If you're looking for a high class audio drawing program here and thing, you're not going to get it. So listen to this. This is me eating a sandwich. I'll turn my mic off. So now I'm just working on this back shoreline, and I'm just putting a few more colors in here, just hints of trees and other things that may be on the shoreline. And remember what I said, that this is off in the distance, so you need less and less details as you get farther back. Now, I'm going to just save this for a second. So you'll see me go to save a copy of this. And then I'm going to go back into the gallery, and there was some mountains that I did one time when we were skiing. Not these ones, not all this stuff. Let me get all the way through this stuff. And in those mountains, if I remember correctly, I did all the trees on the mountains separately. Not these mountains. These are all drawings, so just excuse me as I flip through all of these. And so on here, you can see here, this is a nice set of mountains. You see the way these mountains look? And so let me just look at this one and see what it looks like. So this is all one drawing, and I don't want that. So I'm going to go back into the gallery. So, Angry Bird. trees. There, this one here. But I think there's another version of it down here. And again, what it'll do is it'll just give a little bit more feeling of green until you get up into the snowy areas. And each time I put a different layer on, you can see how the colors start to change slightly. So um, as I build some of this stuff into it, you can see how it starts to look kind of cool. Okay, now I'm going to go way up here into the white because we also have to try and give hints of snow, right? Da 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 da. So working on creating the shadows and the as the light hits the different areas. Hmm. Flipped it. Flip it back and cut it out. Opacity really low. Let's make it a little bit wider. The work I'm doing now is I'm just very quickly working on creating another layer over and above the layers I've done up to this point. And that's all part of the same process of layers upon layers and layers. And so I did what a painting a long time ago that they called it was the old master style of painting. And you start with layers, and you start really light, and then you just build up the layers, and you keep building them up until you get to the dark and the details. Um, it takes a huge amount of patience, and I didn't have it, so I haven't done a lot of paintings in the same style, but it was a very good learning experience to figure out what sort of style of painting you want to work on. And that's why when you have an author that comes to you and first off they think that your paintings are good enough that they would like to use it as their cover, that's basically a compliment to begin with. And then to be able the whole exercise of creating something that the author would be willing, he or she would be willing to use to describe their book, that's a huge compliment. And then what you try to do is you just try to work on building up the different layers and building up the reputation so that more people would like to use your different drawings as their as the author. But the challenge behind it is being able to try and figure out exactly what they're looking for and then help them create their vision through their written word. And if you have a really good author that you're doing the drawing for, then it's real easy to visualize it. But I know as I'm trying to write a book, which no one will probably ever read or it'll ever get published, it has some things in it that I see in my eyes, and as I wrote it, this is what I saw it as. And I'm sure if I gave that book to somebody else and said, "Would you mind drawing a picture of this scene?" you wouldn't get anywhere close to what I see and what that person sees. They'd be too different because I really don't have the talent of the written word that a lot of the other people have. The nice thing is that the person who's asking me to draw these drawings for her cover, it's a she. She's a very good a very good author, which is an artist, and has the ability to create a visual image in my mind. And so the first cover I did for her was an interesting exercise as I tried to create what I saw as I read it, and then try to change it and adapt it based on what she saw and the way she would like the characters to look and the way the scene would look. And so it was kind of fun doing that. I kind of enjoyed it, and it gave me a focus for my drawings rather than just, oh, look, I'm doing a blue landscape. Why? Well, because I was feeling kind of blue today. It gives you an actual reason for doing things, and so it made it kind of fun. And so that's what I'm working on. And so this the drawings that I'm doing now shows that I have one person watching. Now what I have to find out is that me or is it another person? When you do live drawings, like a good idea would be to not do them at dinner time because obviously there's nobody on the computer at dinner time. Later at night, I used to do drawings on my computer all the time with Google Hangouts, and it was always interesting to have people come on and watch you draw and have their different comments on why'd you do it this way or why'd you draw this or how'd you do that. So it's kind of interesting to have that type of feedback as you're drawing. It just adds a little another element to the creative process and to hear other people's comments on what you're doing and how they like it. And so I'm doing what I'm doing now is I'm trying to create fluffy clouds or a cloud bank up in the sky here. And so just taking a little bit of extra time to fan things out a little bit, bring in some dark shadows into some of the lighter areas to break it up into nice fluffy clouds, because there's no storm in the forecast here. The sun is going down on the day, and so all I'm doing is sort of building up the fluffiness or the bank of clouds. I wonder why they call it a bank of clouds or a river bank. I'm sure there's somebody out there who knows that to answer that question. Later on, I'll ask Google where the word came up with a cloud bank. So I'm gonna keep drawing on the clouds and try and get them to get to the point where I'm happy with them. I'm just gonna try. Okay, I'm back. Just took another bite out of my sandwich. It's dinner time here. Today I had jump training with a group of athletes and also volleyball training at the Canadian Elite Academy. So it's all part of the same world. Just going to put in some white here and see if so as these the notice I'm just touching outside edges of the clouds, and then what I'll do is I'll come back in and I'll soften all those spots up again. So I'll come back in with this and then just sort of smudge this stuff around so it becomes more the edge on the cloud, and it shows a little sparkle from where the sun rays might hit. And that creates a nice little cloud bank. So we'll have to see whether or not I'll go for 2 hours. I may not make it that long. Because the picture's getting close to the way I want it, and I shouldn't spend too much time on it because it may not even be one I use. And so it's the standalone. It will stand alone without any problems at all. But then in here, I'm probably going to end up in time putting a tree of some sort in there. But at the moment, I like the way it stands and the way it looks. So I don't think I'll do a heck of a lot more on it. But I'd like to thank you guys who decide to come watch. I don't even know if there was any viewers here, but thank you for taking the time to come watch. And I will hopefully in time get a chance to post this on my YouTube channel and then you can go in there and take a look at how I adjusted and worked on the two islands in the foreground and the clouds. The I didn't show you how I did the mountains. I did a few little touch-ups on it, but they were done one morning when I was up late and just decided I'd like to draw a little bit, so I did some drawing before I went to bed. So I got sleepy. So anyways, thank you for watching me do the blue landscape, and I will see you again next Thursday at 6 o'clock, and I'll come on and I'll draw again at that time. So thanks a lot, you guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.